Hey there everyone, and let's get started with the reactjs. Now, we have learned quite a lot about the component, but now there is one more concept on which everybody is talking about the React, that is the virtual DOM. Now, you don't need to go much into the depth of virtual DOM because React automatically does everything for you and you never have to worry about it. But I'll share you what the concept is and give you a quick example as well. But apart from that, you don't have to look much about it in case you want to do some kind of experimenting with the design of the React. So let's get started. So what you have seen so far is that we have got some data, like just some sample data in here. And this was already there. Now, when we called for the Amy, like for example, this dot your name, instead we called just simply like say hello. Now, only thing that need to be updated in here was simply Amy or maybe Sammy, just like that. Now, what happened in the early days or in other application is whenever we need to update anything on the page, entire page is being reloaded. And in technical terms, the entire DOM or the document object model is re-rendered again so that whatever the updates are being done can be done on the page. Now, React actually came up with this fantastic idea that whenever we need to update the DOM, don't just update everything into the DOM or don't just reload everything in the DOM. Just look whatever the changes need to be made and just reload that particular element only or that particular component only. So that is your virtual DOM. It just passes all the information to the virtual DOM, and the virtual DOM again pass that information to actual DOM and just update those things. Now, obviously, there are a lot of technical things going on in here, but just understand this thing, that only the things that are changed in here are updated in the DOM. And I know this is not the greatest example in here, so we'll move on to the code pen and we'll try to understand when something is updated on the go. So let's create a new pen. And obviously, we'll go into the settings, go to the JavaScript, and where we are looking for Babel. Quickly add few things like a React, and let's add React DOM as well and close this. So this looks good, and what we need is here is we need to create an HTML element with the root, and obviously this is quite easy things that we are doing. And let's just call this as id equals, and let's call this as root, no big deal. Okay. And now our focus is on the JS. So what we are writing a quick function in the React manner. And what we want on the screen is simply a ticker which displays the time, and the seconds will be updated in that. So we'll quickly write a function in here. And the function, let's just call this as time tick. Okay. And in this function, let's just define this function. What we're going to do, first of all, we're going to define an element. So again, notice in the React DOM.render, we pass on what and where. Where is being solved, document.get element by ID root. Now we are defining what. Okay. So this is our element, and our element is going to be, I know this is a little bit weird syntax for you, but this is going to be like this. So I'll just close this, and inside this element, let's just create a couple of enters. We are rendering a couple of divs. So I'll hit a div there. Oops, it's not going to work like that. So I'll have to create a div and close this div as well, because we are rendering an element here, kind of a JSX. Okay, that sounds good. And now in this div, I'll first of all create an h1 tag, and I'll say the time is, and I'll close this h1. Oops, I have to close just like this. Okay. And just after this, I'll write an h2 as well to define my time this time. And in order to define the time, it's really simple. It's not that much of a big deal. We'll use the parenthesis syntax, and I'll say time colon. I know it is quite a colons and times there, but we'll use the syntax that we have learned in the last movie. Pair of parentheses, and in this we are going to call simply new element there. So new date, which is an inbuilt function in here, and we are going to call 2.to local time. Oops, local time string. I know this might look a little bit weird to you, but just stay with me. There's not much big deal in here. Okay, as soon as you go, just go outside this pair, this semicolon there, And now we can call in here react dom dot render, and just in here type a what and where. So what, this is going to be element, and where, it's going to be document dot get. And I think I'm missing something in here. I don't think so, it's all good, but why it's not getting color coded in here, that's bothering me a little bit. I'll fix that in a second. Document dot get element by ID, and I'll just write root in here. Okay, that sounds good, and I think that's okay for us. And obviously we have to call this function as well, and I think I am probably missing out some things in here, otherwise it wouldn't have complained to us. And I think I'll separate them in here. Let me just expand this a little bit so that I can see the things in a much better manner. Obviously you make mistake when things are a little bit clumsy. Okay, sounds good, this looks good, and I think we need to go. Okay, this now looks good. React DOM, and I think we are good to go. And we have saved this, and I think things are good. Now let's just call this as in here. So what we are gonna do is we're gonna call an element that says set interval. And in case you don't know what that is, it's an inbuilt method that says set interval. And I know this is going quite along, but have a faith in me. And let's just say every second it updates the things. And let's just say we are going to call time tick function in here. So copy this and paste in here. And there we go. So, and it still says loading, and there are a couple of things, and it says there is missing unterminated JSX on 7. Okay, so we forgot somewhere to terminate the JSX. So we somewhere forgot to close. So this div tag looks good. Let's just expand that. And I think it's good. Why it's yelling at me? Now let's just see if we can figure out 10 problems. And we forgot to close the div, so I'll just close that. And now everything is working. And let's just see if we can see something on the screen. And again, it's having some problem. Again, it says unterminated JSX. What did I forgot to terminate now? Come on, it's H1 is being closed. And I think it has now saved and rendered the thing for me. So I'll go back in here, and it's still loading the things for me. I think this time it should work. Okay, so it has finally worked. A little bit delay in the loading of the things, but now you can see that things are working. So what I want to show in here is if I get in here and click on inspect, and I open up this HTML tag in here in the body, and what I'm looking for is this guy. So I'm looking for this guy. And notice in the h2 tag, we are not updating h2 or even reloading the page. We are just updating this element in here. Now, obviously, this is super important to understand because this is actually where the React shines quite a lot. Now, imagine an application which is so big, and whenever a new thing appears on your screen, you have to reload the entire page. And this is not a good idea, actually. This is much better and sounds so much great when you simply just want to update the things that are being changed. For example, only 5 elements on your page out of 100, only 5 are getting changed, so just update the 5. Why are you actually re-rendering the entire DOM? That makes application quite slow, and for an application like Facebook that much big, productivity and the performance of the app is at the #1 position. So what we have learned here, we have learned and talked about the React document object model, as well as what is this virtual DOM, and we have learned quite a lot about how we can render the elements. Obviously, if I had to do this onto the local environment, then I have to set the state and then talk about the states and everything. That's why I have chosen to do it on the CodePen. For sure, we'll be redoing this project in a much simpler manner onto the local environment. But before that, we need to talk about the states and components and a lot of things. I know things have been little bit bumpy here, but always when you write the code, expect that it's not going to run for the first time. That's a pro coder advice. Your code is not going to run for the first time, and always look out for the problems, and the problems need to be solved. And the more good you will be able to solve the problems, the more good coder you will be.